Welcome to the Modern Watchman podcast, where faith meets the front lines of culture.
We break down what's happening in the world, what's behind it, and how believers can stand strong in truth.
We're not here to fear the times, we're here to understand them.
Because being watchmen means staying awake, staying ready, and staying grounded in the Word.
Let's get into it.
Welcome to the Modern Watchman podcast.
With Tom and Wendy. Hello. What's on the docket tonight, Tom?
We should have talked about this before.
Well, you just had all this bathroom time.
Well, I have a lot of thoughts, but you are good at
I have an idea. Let's talk about...
Well, first off, let's do an update. How about that?
Update.
I just needed you to start on a thought, and then I would
Then
need
you'll
to interrupt you.
it. Okay, go for it.
So we just dropped our gold hit 4,000 podcast, right? It's currently like $4,160.
Man, wild.
And silver broke $50. We talked, or actually,
it had already broken 50.
I think it had not in our first gold podcast. It was at like 48, but now it's at like 53. 50, high 52s, mid 52s at least, something like that.
Crazy. But it's still staying lower than the gold climb. Like it's not percentage-wise.
No, it's like
climbing at the same rate.
It's pulling along right behind there. Yeah. I don't know about the same percentage exactly, but they're both on big moves. Just to be clear, I'm not talking about this and like, oh my gosh, this is like for sure the time to put all your money in gold or something like that. That's not really what I'm saying.
We are not financial advisors.
No, I'm really not. But I'm like, it's very fascinating to watch an asset class like gold, and gold specifically. Silver is different as much as they get associated with each other. It is fascinating to watch this thing that is like the just sort of baseline asset of civilization move in the way that it's moving. So it's just fascinating to take in. I'm interested in it. I'm watching it. It's just meaningful.
I did have a question come up today regarding, is it enough to invest in the stocks of precious metals, or do you need to actually physically possess the physical metal?
It depends on what like your strategy is, like what you want to be able to get out of it. Because if you just invest in
like trading
gold on the market where you don't actually own a gold bar, it's much more liquid. So when you want to get out of that into something else, it's very easy to do. If you want to buy it in your 401k or your IRA with that money, it's easier to do.
So essentially, if you're in it to make money, obviously you can do that way. Well, if you're thinking of it more in the way that we're thinking of it, which is, okay, perhaps the dollar is collapsing, we're hedging, moving into physical assets.
Well, no, so we are physical asset people. Like the land that we bought more property than we like maybe needed for our own self. That was an investment in our next generation, our children.
Property, like acres?
Like, yeah, we didn't buy a house on a postage stamp, or we didn't buy the biggest house we could on the smallest amount of property. We bought the biggest amount of property we could with a house that we could live in. And that was an investment in a physical asset. Now, Wendy and I have a different approach we are not a great example in a lot of ways to follow. Let's just say that. We have a very unique approach, and it isn't based off of just like wealth accumulation. But of course that's an element of it, but it's more like with a very specific purpose. Like we will hopefully have land that we can, our kids can inherit, but even before they inherit it, we can actually allow them to utilize it to build a house for their family, and that would be a huge leg up and give them a better ability to kind of get a foothold. And then of course sort of along the lines of the multi-generational living, be able to support them as grandparents as they raise their kids and have all that chaotic. Many of you guys know what it's like to either have grandparents that help so much or not have grandparents that help so much. Both, you know what I'm talking about. So that's kind of, that's one way we have invested in physical assets. And then from the like precious metal standpoint, it's a very safe investment in that the price can fluctuate. It never goes to zero, which companies can go bankrupt, banks can fail.
Dollars can go to zero.
The stock market has crashed multiple times. Now, luckily, over the last 100 years, it generally recovers really well eventually. But there's a lot of more volatility. There's less volatility. And I mean, in our period of a decade of precious metals investment, we have purchased at different intervals, but, basically almost every interval we've purchased at has doubled the price. Like the last interval we purchased at, we're not quite to doubling, but it's looking like we're getting really close to that, which is pretty crazy. And so for if I really broke it down, it would almost be like every time we purchased within 4 years, it had doubled. So for a very, very low risk to double every 4 or 5 years.
And a slow grow. I mean, that's a slow grow.
Yeah, it's slow and steady.
Comparatively.
But to be clear, we don't really do it as an investment. It's a hedge. It's a safety net. It's the savings. Why put my money, and think about this. I've had my money in physical assets that have multiplied multiple times as a savings account. If I had my money in a savings account in a bank making 1%, even if I had it in a money market account, it still wouldn't have performed that well. So overall, it's very safe, secure.
It's an interesting option to at least put some of your portfolio there.
Absolutely. It's not a all thing. So then and I am not a big stock market guy. I don't like it, but we do own some index funds, some shares in index funds, which track the market. So if the market goes up, they go up. And if the market goes down, they go down. And then we own some precious metals mining companies. And similar, they can have even bigger returns than the metal itself because they're sitting on, it depends on the stage. There's a lot that goes into miners and stuff because there's different kind of classes of them, but we try to diversify through the risk there. I've actually over the years moved away from the riskier junior miners into the more solid established ones, and that's done really well. And of course, right now it's doing really well. So there are a lot of ways to invest in gold. You can invest in gold miners. You can invest in tradable gold on the stock market. And you can invest in physical gold coins and bars.
Which again, if if it does play out the way that we're hypothesizing.
Sure.
Let's do that. It's always good to have the physical thing, like that's the only real thing there actually is.
Well, and also I thought about talking about this tonight, but wasn't even sure if we should go there. But there's the element too of just we are so close to. You've heard about central bank digital currencies. You've heard about ID cards, digital IDs. The United Kingdom's going through a lot with that right now.
Mark of the beast.
And obviously, there's those elements that are very, very intriguing in there. And what did I say? Digital ID, central bank digital currency. That's kind of biometrics, basically where it's going to start to blend. First, it's probably going to be you got to have an ID on your phone, but we're already starting to see the biometrics where that's not enough. You got to like scan your iris and that's already happening in a lot of places.
With iPhones where you can touch your fingertip and stuff, different
I mean, they're doing it to us when you go through TSA.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's all fine if it's voluntary, but like it's one of those, once you get into the trap, there's kind of no pulling back from it.
We're being conditioned. We're certainly being conditioned to accept these things when they come, especially when it's like, well, you won't be able to get on a plane if you don't. You won't be able to, whatever, if you don't do this. It's those little concessions that we've made, and I include us in that, group of people that are making the concessions. But there will come a time, obviously, Bible says we're going to have to draw that line. And as watchmen, we're meant to look ahead and go, what is all this about? Obviously, I don't think that the vaccine, am I allowed to say that? I don't even know if I can say that.
We can say that now.
Okay. The jabby was the mark of the beast. No, I do not think that personally. I think you will know you're taking the mark of the beast. I do not think it will be done in deception. But it was most certainly a test. Absolutely a conditioning, again, to see how far, where we're at, as a society, how much we're willing to be shoved around, how much those who proclaim their faith are actually, how much it's a noun and not a verb. They're not going to actually do anything with it. They're just going to say they have it, if that makes sense. So yes, and again, I speak that with no condemnation, only just an invitation to recognize what's happening. This is why it's so critical to discern the times, to be a watchman, to pay attention, to know the Bible, to know how prophecy applies to what we're seeing play out in our world. Because when something like a jab comes out that's going to require, you have to have it in order to walk into a restaurant, or you have to have a passport in order to get on a plane or leave the country or come back into the country.
You already have to have a passport to do that, but
a vaccine passport is what I meant.
Sure.
That's what it was called. We do not have to have that yet, but we did there for a minute, some of us, for certain things that we were doing.
And I guess what I wanted to kind of finish about the like physical assets element is like when I am on some level preparing for that world, and it's like on our doorstep, and I do not live in fear of this, because I've already, like, God's in control.
Mm-hmm. And he's good.
That's kind of the start and finish of it in and of itself. But also, like, I'm going to prepare in ways that I can, and not like, again, this is not an obsession. It's literally like I think so little of it when you just kind of get the basic things in line. But we live in a community that of a lot of like-minded people. Now, many people are just like anyone else and will go along with things. And at the same time, there's a lot of people that have physical assets, that have ability to feed themselves more than the average American. And if it really came down to it, it would be extremely, extremely hard and difficult and not fun at all. But if we could even eke out just a subsistence lifestyle,
Wow.
and stay out of that, if I can give my family an option to where we're not forced into a system just because it's that or starve, and that's probably like,
That's kind of what the Bible says.
Well, and that's why I say, like, there's only so much we can do. God's in control, and like if our fate is to starve or fate is to be martyred or whatever,
it's already written in the book.
It's already written in the book, and is what it is.
No getting out of it.
And at the same time, those physical assets, like, I am in a peaceful way. I can, by having incremental silver, for example, you can potentially stand up a community economy where
utilizing it as a currency.
You can bring liquidity of a currency to a market, because the free market is like a law of nature. You can't stop it. It exists like gravity exists. People will always like trade eggs for milk, or, you know, whatever. Like, you cannot stop human beings from exchange. It's like what we do. Like, we do commerce, right? We talk about being a consumeristic culture. Well, we're also a productive culture. We produce excess, and then what do we do with that excess? We use it to get someone else's excess, right? We trade. And so that's going to be here. But the key to a functioning economy is, in so many ways, currency, is that universal bartering token, right? That's why dollars are so dang helpful, right? Because you don't want to get paid in whatever your company makes and then have to go trade it for tires on your car and groceries. So we use money. And if enough like-minded people accumulate something like gold or silver and decide to step out of society, or are ostracized from society, but can still function between themselves with some sort of store of value, that's an incredibly, like,
it's good.
I know this is kind of wild and out there conversation, but when people are like, how are you going to stand up to that stuff? It's like, well, actually, some of us are well on our way to figuring it out. And if you're not, we don't care if you're not on board. That's cool. We'll do it. We're doing it without you. You know what I mean? So it's all good. No hard feelings. You're not invited, you know?
Yeah, don't be coming.
I'm joking, but like, but there is like people, there's just nothing I can do about it. Well, okay. If that's how you feel, you're probably right. But then there's a group of people who are like, no,
I've got a plan.
There are some things I can do about it. And, you know, not to go too far down this rabbit hole, but like I always say, the first thing you have to do is recognize reality for what it is. And if you first see it for what it actually is, then you can start to do something about it. Most people are not even awake and aware of the reality that is facing them.
Or they don't want to be, their head in the sand.
Fair enough.
Intentionally, purposely.
Reality will
come up against you.
Will hit them at some point. And then there's folks who do wake up, are aware of the reality that is this world, and they start to go, okay, I have options. I can put my head back in the sand, or I can look into what I can actually do. And so that's kind of how you get on these, that's how you end up on a dead-end road in Tennessee.
You end up us. Okay, let's pivot for a second, because there's a lot going on today about the peace deal between Israel and Gaza. Obviously, Israel just cannot not be the center of conversation right now.
Can we talk about something we brought up earlier today?
Is it related to Israel?
It is.
Okay, go for it.
And
is that what you sent me? The video? Tom drove a lot today, so he's consumed a tremendous amount of information.
Mostly
in the car.
Our own two podcasts.
Yes,
because I hadn't listened to them yet, and I was like, how bad are we? Let's find out. We got better.
Are you talking about the geofencing?
No, I wasn't even talking about the geofencing. Let's talk about this real quick. So there's been a theory I've heard, and like I've never really cared to like take the time to do some research on it.
Did you research that?
A little bit.
Wow.
Enough to go, this is hilarious and this is more stupid than I ever even imagined. But basically, there's a theory that, and some of you may have heard this, that basically the Zionist Jews that make up Israel as we know it today, the state of Israel,
and are Zionists being defined.
The wanting to reestablish a state of Israel, you know, et cetera, et cetera. There's more to it, but
patriots, like fierce patriots, like of Israel.
No, that's not the right way to put it. They're
kind of
so
like
basically,
warrior-ish.
Israel wasn't a state, and it was no longer a nation. It was a British territory called Palestine, and post World War II, the British Empire was crumbling post World War II. All the empires were crumbling. France had French Indochina and probably played Morocco or Algeria or whatever. And, they had some areas, and I'm trying to think who else, whatever. But the Western European influence that was like global was crumbling. They were broke. They were bombed. London was in tatters. Everyone was a mess.
Time to go inward.
And it was just time to pull inward. Exactly. And so the Middle East, Palestine was one of them. It was like, we don't even really know what to do with this. And there had been a movement even prior to World War II, around like the late 1800s, where there were some Jews that were like starting to form organizations in the United States and Europe to try to kind of create, I guess, a movement to resettle Israel,
the promised land.
And
we're talking about, that is the actual original Canaan in the Bible. In Genesis, Abraham is called to Canaan, which is modern day Israel. So when people say, is Israel a people or is it a place? Yes.
Both.
Both favorites.
But and again, I don't have like the exact, I'm giving you a loose kind of storyline, but somewhere along the line, one of these guys came up with the term Zionist, which was like a reestablishment, return to Zion, return to Canaan, return to the promised land of the Jewish people, to give them a home land of their own, because they had really been kind of spread across the winds. Well, the primary sect of Jews that were kind of doing that were Ashkenazi Jews, which had dispersed out of Israel hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago into like Germany and Eastern Europe, and then of course onto the United States, and just kind of like out into the world as humans do, moving around. That is the group of Jews, the sect of Jews. I don't know if a sect is the right word, because they're
Why are they called Ashkenazi? What are they called?
Well, so Ashkenazi goes back to one of the tribes, I believe, but then Ashkenazi became just a word for Jews from like Germany before it was called Germany. Like we're talking hundreds of years ago. And even Eastern Europe. And so then in 1947, the colonies of Britain are falling apart, as is all the other European colonies, and they basically decide to like
kick Palestine to the curb.
Really, just to establish this like interim government. It's actually really fascinating history of like what happened for that like 15 or 20 years there, where the Jews were really hung out to dry. They were kind of like dropped off on the beach kind of thing, and then like hope it goes well, and then like immediately all the Arabs were like, whoa, you're not coming back here. And I mean, they had to fight for their lives. Like, it's actually a pretty crazy story, and there's a lot of impressive history there. But to get to the point, so there's the Ashkenazi Jews that were the Zionists.
And that's fulfillment of a biblical prophecy.
That's
the reestablishment.
The Ashkenazi Jews were basically the Jews that had not lived in the Middle East for hundreds of years, spread out to Europe, spread out to the United States, all this stuff, and were that group and leaders of that group. It's not really a formed group, but just of that genetic sect of Jews, were the ones that were pushing for the reestablishment of the state of Israel. Well, what's interesting is if you really think about it, there were Jews still in Palestine. They didn't all leave. There were genetically Jewish people in Palestine. And as the history kind of goes, and again, this is a rough, that Palestine, that Israel, whatever you want to call it, that area of the world was conquered. And a lot of those, back in that time, it was like whatever conquered you became your religion, right? Like that was how it worked. And so actually, first, that whole area converted to Christianity. I forget which emperor or who that was under, but first they were converted to Christianity and then converted to Islam when I believe it was like one of the Byzantine empires or emperors took over that area. But there were the Jews that were still living there. So this is the punchline. Get ready for this. I was just like, this is so incredible. Basically, and there's actually been genetic testing that's been done, the Palestinians that hate the Jews and the Ashkenazi Zionist Israelis, Jews that we know to be Jews today, are genetically very related. So the Palestinians...
They don't know they're Jewish?
Are Jewish. Now, not all of them, and not...
This is going viral.
And in fairness, I'm going to try and give this as like fair and objective a presentation as I can. The Ashkenazi Jews, because Jews tend to settle and isolate, have a tighter genetic Jewish DNA than the Palestinian Jews, because the Palestinian Jews have been conquered and converted, and there's been other influences there. But the Palestinians are partly Jewish and have lived there the entire time, and the Ashkenazis left and came back. And so the irony of like, no, this is our land given to us by God. No, this is our land. Literally, this is like a brother and sister fighting over who gets mom's house.
Well, okay, but that's how it is with Israel and Islam as well. Because going back to Abraham in Genesis, Abraham and Sarah, husband and wife, God gives a covenant to Abraham, the Abrahamic covenant, which Abraham is asleep during the making of this covenant, which is to say that God is responsible for both sides of the covenant. Abraham, the Jews, cannot blow it enough to get out of the covenant. God is responsible for upholding both sides of this covenant.
It's like he knew.
And so the covenant is, you will have these children, you'll have generations of children, you'll have the promised land. It's going to go really well for you. Well, after about a decade, Abraham was already in his 80s, I believe, when he was given that covenant, well past childbearing years. About a decade passes. He still hasn't had any children. So Sarah, his wife, says, why don't you have a child with Hagar, my maidservant, that will be legally my child. And so he does, because he's dumb. And that's Ishmael is born, and he is technically Abraham's firstborn child. Of course, culturally, the firstborn is the one who has the birthright to the promise, to the blessing, to the land, to the riches, etc., etc. The most inheritance comes to the firstborn. So Ishmael is the father of all the Arab nations, which have all become Islamist, Muslim nations. So the Islamic religion sees Abraham as their religious father. The Jews see Abraham as their religious father. Christians are grafted into the promise and see Abraham as a religious father. I mean, man, when you start to learn the Bible and history and how these things intersect, you're like, how could you ever not take the Bible absolutely literally? It's the only way this all makes sense. So whether or not the Palestinians are, genetically Jewish, they're still tied into Abraham, which is to say they're still Jewish through Abraham. Because the Hebrews are the Jews, the Israelites are the Jews, they're all the same people group. They all come from Abraham. All of them.
I just like my dark sense of fire service EMS humor is like, the Jews are genociding Jews right now.
And they don't even know it.
But even too, it brings in...
But when you said it's literally siblings fighting, yes, Yes.
And it just makes it so extra stupid. The whole fight, it's literally reminds me of my
tantrums.
kids bickering in the back seat over like a kernel of popcorn or something, like a bunch of rabid raccoon siblings. It's ridiculous. And
now it's serious and tragic.
Well, it is serious and tragic, but it makes me like think about like our involvement in it just adds to the silliness. Like how the American church's involvement in it. It's like if you and it's even like the deception of the enemy here of like he would pit God's people against God's people, them be blind to it, and then drag in the superpower to like support one side and get the American church to believe
oh yeah, there's
a lie.
deception all
Like
over
it's just the whole thing. When I thought about it that way, I was like, you're kidding me. Like there is like proof that the Palestinians are like
both sides.
Have strong Jewish DNA, and when they say we've actually lived here for the last 1,000 years and you guys left and are coming back, and
it's true.
It's all of it's true. Like it's true that the Ashkenazi Jews are Jewish and have a claim to that land.
They both have a claim
to the land. And the people who stayed are the Jewish people that stayed and have a claim to that land.
They all have a claim.
And here we are as if there's a right side or wrong side. It makes me feel dumb for even the years that I've spent like not understanding that and actually believing it was like two separate, truly separate people. When it's like come to find out they're like basically the same.
Well, and so again, the question being, how should Christians view this situation? What are we supposed to do, right? Because like I explained, the Abrahamic covenant, I believe, is still active. I believe we are in the age of the church. The Jewish people are not finished. We are not the chosen people of God, the church. I do not believe that myself. That is disputed. Other people believe differently. This is Wendy. I believe the tribulation is for the Jews. They killed the Messiah. They have been in rebellion since the beginning. I believe there's a plan still playing out for the Jews. I still believe there's grace that is going to play out for the Jews. Knowing that, again, like we said in a past episode, we as Christians do not need to then tie our government to their government and be dragged around by a leash wherever the Israelites want to wander this time. That's not what we're called to do biblically. We are called to intercede and pray, and we are called to discern the times. Again, it is biblical that the Jews have wandered off God's path for them more than one time. It's kind of like a theme. Very well established early on in the Bible. So we're not meant to just wander away with them, right? That's not what we're called to do as Christians. This kind of speaks to the geofencing, so we can tie this in here because there is a known...
We're going to bring digital ID, central bank digital currency, and Israel all back together.
Here we go.
So
Israel has... Why don't you explain this part with the geofencing?
So...
it's hard to set up.
No, it's... So basically, title, Israel's paying to track Christians in the Western United States.
Did you say pain?
Paying. Well, that's not... Israel is tracking Christians in the Western United States. So they set up a company, and they even went so far as to register it. So there's a FARA registration, foreign agent registration
something.
And basically they filled out the paperwork for this company that is an Israeli government company to...
Not even under a shell company. They were pretty
they're pretty upfront
about it.
And they are... Geofencing is where you can create an area where people's phones are recognized and the data is tracked when somebody enters that area. So, if you've ever been to a concert or something, and you'll get like a notification on your phone when you're in the arena at like the Morgan Wallen concert, and it'll be like a link for buying t-shirts or whatever, or who knows. That's geofencing, where it knows you're there, and so it's sending an ad to you. And so it can be used for a lot of different things. And in this case, Israel is geofencing a bunch of churches in Western
United States.
And there's actually a list of them. It's available because it's in that foreign agent registration packet. And I mean, there was a bunch. I mean, there's a bunch in California, Southern California. I saw one in Vacaville.
And essentially what they're doing is when you enter into this church, you are being targeted for propaganda. I mean, that's what it is. This is their PR strategy to try to get the Christian church back on their side. I say back on their side because there's been a little bit of a split. We used to toe the line as the church, just yes, Israel, whatever you say, whatever you want, you're God's chosen people. Now that is kind of crumbling apart a little bit to an extreme as pendulum swings, right? Like it used to be where everything you say is great. And now the pendulum is swinging in the a little bit far, I would say, towards more hatred of the Jews, anti-Semitic thoughts, maybe not so much in the church, certainly in the secular world, but also in the church. The church is having a break with Israel very, very recently. And Israel has a strategy to try to correct that PR. I mean, that's what it is. And so they're targeting Christians who are attending church, who are active in their faith, to give them push notifications that are specific to.
Well, technically, it could come in any form.
Think about Israel.
We don't know. Like, it's probably going to come. They're going to know that you go to this church. You were there on Sunday at 11 a.m. And then they're going to probably push some sort of
content your way,
third-party content your way on Instagram or TikTok or whatever. And it's probably going to be subtle. It's not like when you go to church, you're going to get the ad, because that's also how geofencing can work, is they just know you went here. And so they can, you went to McDonald's. Well, McDonald's can know that and then send you more ads later and say, hey, whatever.
Come on back.
Come on back. Yeah. So it's probably going to be much more subtle. And it's probably going to be third party. It's not like, this is a message from the Israeli government. Wow, we really appreciated your support.
It might even be algorithmic, like putting influencers in your feed.
That's what it's going to be.
Like that's what it's going to look like. But the goal being to think about Israel differently. They're trying to persuade Christians to, be on their side.
But now let's
however you feel about that.
Now let's talk about.
Completely legal to do that. Totally allowed.
Sort of some of my thoughts on it is, I have a bunch of thoughts. I don't like a foreign government tracking me as a Christian.
Any government.
I don't like a foreign government tracking me as an American.
I don't like my own government.
I don't like my own government. I've been very consistent on that. I don't like my own government tracking me either. But definitely not a foreign government too. It's kind of like my big brother can do it, but not the neighbor kid, but no. And also, is that all they're actually doing? Or are they compiling a list for more complex reasons, more down the road reasons? Whatever they're doing, I think it's a test. I think they're using just a data pool. They're not doing the whole nation because either it would cost too much, or they don't know if it would be worthwhile for whatever their goal is. Because there must be some reason why they're targeting the Southwest, or maybe they're using shell companies to do the rest of the country. Who knows? But when we're getting to this age where we're right around the corner from biometrics, digital ID, central bank digital currency.
Every move you make.
All those things being
recorded.
Trackable and then controllable.
Mm-hmm. Turned on, turned off.
If they could just as well be compiling a list of podcasters who are willing to criticize them so that when that time comes, they can use their influence that they attained by trafficking minors over my government to turn off my central bank digital currency. It's possible. It's in this wild world. I want to be clear. That's not what I actually think is happening, and doesn't keep me up at night.
I mean,
but I think these things through and go, gosh, there's a lot of nefarious things that could be done with that, way certainly beyond just influencing Christians with TikTok influencers. I have a feeling that the same people who could put explosives in 3,000 pagers of their enemies and get those pagers on those people's hips, I have a feeling that there's more to it than just
a little propaganda.
A little bit of propaganda. But who knows? But I think it's something that should make us very uncomfortable, no matter who the country is in this day and age. And here's the thing. The central bank digital currency stuff and the controls that will come with that, because there will be a whole new set of laws, and it will be unwritten laws. It will be things like you don't put your cart away at the grocery store. That's going to cost you. It's going to be these things like, it's going to start to
compliance.
It's going to be compliance based, not so much like morality based. And it's really just going to be about gently nudging a population into conformity and compliance.
Now, remember, this already exists. This is not hypothetical. This is not, it could happen. Already in place in China. They already have a social credit score. They're, if they post something negative about the government online, they lose points. All of those things are already in play.
Vietnam just rolled out their version of digital ID, CBDC, and they turned off 84 million bank accounts, and they said they were all these were just bank accounts that weren't being used, and all the press is saying no, these are all the people that don't get to have bank accounts anymore.
Wow.
And so when you talk about Tom and Wendy sound crazy, this stuff is actually...
That's just because you haven't watched the Vietnamese news recently, okay?
This stuff is actually happening on the planet right now.
It's not hypothetical.
Make no mistake, the powers that are moving towards this stuff, they know to roll it out in Vietnam and in a super police state nation like China before they can ever get Americans to do it. You know what I mean? And first you have to be aware of the reality to even be able to make a choice about it, to make a plan. And so,
again, this isn't about fear. This is not about fear. It should actually, part of fighting back, if you will, or being prepared for various scenarios. I mean, even just when we have a storm come through, there's a certain amount of things you do in preparation. If we could just hold
on, I could stir this real quick.
Jingle that.
Yeah, because all my greens are going to the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm better now. It's good. That's great.
There's a certain amount of preparation that we do on storm days when storms are forecast. Now, is there a high likelihood of a serious storm hitting our farm? Actually, no, there really isn't.
Never has, really.
Never has. I mean, well, not our farm exactly, but...
Could be stormtroopers.
I mean, there is a potentiality. So we do some basic things to prepare ourselves for the storm. Now, what's wild to me is, maybe this is because I'm not from Tennessee originally, I'm extra aware of the weather during tornado seasons. Actually, I'm coming into the season where I'm starting to look at the weather again, because
you're a weather watchman.
The end of the summer, it gets really boring. It doesn't even rain for 2 months, just 2 months. Then we're back into it again. But we're coming into kind of the shadow tornado season. I say all this to say, part of the preparation is knowing what's coming, looking at the 10-day forecast and knowing on Monday that Thursday there is a chance of severe weather. So that just tells me I'm going to have to pay closer attention on Thursday to what's coming in, that day. have my alerts on, make sure I'm getting alarmed if I need to get alarmed.
Make sure you're subscribed to Ryan Hall, y'all.
Absolutely. That's what we're going to do.
Tennessee Valley Weather. Shout out to Ben Luna.
And I might even pivot. If the weather is starting to look more and more concerning and I'm supposed to be driving to Nashville that night, I might actually cancel my plans based on what I'm discerning could be happening.
That's living in fear.
No, it's not living in fear. It's being prepared. And here's the deal. Like I said, part of it is just thinking it through and knowing I am prepared. I've done what I can. I have a plan. I'm not going to be on the road. I'm mitigating actual fear, because if I'm driving during a tornado, let me tell you, that is not my favorite.
That's my
favorite. The worst. So I'm going to try to not be doing that. I don't think there's any advantage to not checking the weather, not having a storm alarm, putting my head in the sand, sleeping through the night, hoping for the best. No, when you are woken up in the middle of the night completely with no plan, absolutely unprepared, what happens then? More fear than I have, 100% more fear than I have, because I'm not caught off guard. I've thought it through. I do have a plan. I'm all prayed up, so to speak. I'm ready to roll. Let's go. I saw this coming from a million miles away. So yes, it can be scary in that moment, but I'm not filled with fear. I'm not being caught off guard with that oppressive spirit of fear that the enemy's right there ready to get. So there's my tangent. Be weather aware, folks. Be weather aware. Peace deal. That was the other thing I wanted to talk about, because this is going to be perhaps an unpopular opinion. But
it's pretty much like all we
have
on this episode. And I've got one to close with if we have time. Oh, good. That's really going to seal the deal on unpopular opinion. So maybe
this is it. Trump has, to our knowledge, as so far, ushered in a peace agreement between Gaza and Israel. And he's there in Israel. And it seems to be going really well. This is where I would say you haven't seen me post so much about it, not because I'm not like, awesome, this is great. Obviously, I want peace in the Middle East, but I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm not going to go far out on my, I told you so, like nonsense on the gram just yet, because let's get a few months past this, like we were talking about it this morning, about what if all these people, and actually I saw some footage just as we were coming in here to do this.
Israel's already bombing them again?
Well.
Possibly?
Not bombing, but certainly not.
Sicking dogs on them?
They're certainly not honoring the ceasefire by way of not killing anyone as they're coming back in. They're not bombing.
What'd they do? Drop food
it's hard to see. It's hard to say what's going on, but there's already rumors that...
Did I say this morning?
You did.
Yeah, okay.
He did say this morning. And just before we came in to do this, a girlfriend sent me a video and I was watching it. There's already shade all over this thing. So we have to be really careful about getting too cocky and too condescending to the other side, because you lose your moral high ground when you do that, first of all. But also, we don't know how this is actually going to go. Let's give it some more time, okay? Here's the unpopular opinion connected to that, because that's probably on its own an unpopular opinion. Like what you were talking about, Trump is asking for a pardon to Netanyahu.
No, he asked the president of Israel,
the prime minister.
The prime minister of Israel to pardon Bibi Netanyahu, because Netanyahu's
a pardon,
pretty much for sure going to go to prison whenever it catches up with him. Because in a way, you guys, and again, I'm just making comparisons I think are fair to make. Netanyahu and Vladimir Putin have similar
ways of leading.
No, history. Putin has been in power or with a protege temporarily in power because he had to step out for one term, and he would be the premier instead of the president or whatever. And Bibi Netanyahu has done a similar thing. He's been in power almost the same amount of time as Putin, just kind of like back in and out whenever necessary. That's just, I'm just, again, pointing out something that's not quite as democratic as we might think. Now, other people get to rule their land the way they want. If they want to have a king, they can have a king. I respect that as a liberty-minded American. You can rule your nation how you want to rule it.
So long as they're voting it.
But I will call it, as an American, what I call it. And to me, Netanyahu is not far off of Putin in the fact that he has not given up power. He's been there for a long, long time and just keeps hanging around.
Obviously corrupt, has crimes, has done crimes.
And is probably, I mean, again, like, I am not intimately aware of all the court cases, but of course, you know, Trump was very dismissive of them. It's champagne and cigars, but I've looked into it enough to be like, I don't know, it looks like he's been doing whatever he has to do to maintain power. And there's now, recently, there's been enough, he's become unpopular enough to where they were actually able to prosecute him. And so at some point that's going to catch up with him. And that's why Trump knows. If Trump didn't know it was going to catch up to him, he wouldn't have brought up the pardon. But the people that know, like, he's literally holding on to power by a thin margin, and when he loses power, he will be going to prison, or he might go to prison amidst it all. Israel's been like on the brink of collapse governmentally.
That's why it's getting sloppy. That's why things are coming out.
Some people even think that it's, and again, I'm going to throw out wild, this is not my theory, but some people think that he stood down forces on October 7th to create this crisis, to keep himself out of prison.
Some people think that.
Well, they have a decent, case in like what they say, like around what was going on in his trials, around what was going on in the nation, in the way that they form a government, because they have like a coalition government. It's very different than the United States. There's similarities, but like it is very different. So yeah, there's just a lot going on.
Well, the unpopular opinion regarding that is Trump asking for a pardon, essentially siding with or covering for or dismissing Netanyahu's crimes or corruption, which doesn't, in my opinion, look favorably on Trump. And I am one that's very measured with Trump. We have not been very Trumpy, like, you know, we're not.
I think people think we're very Trumpy.
Yes, people definitely think we're very Trumpy. Well, because if you're a conservative, you're a MAGA. You know.
And also I think people who know us, and like because we went to January 6th, they think we're super Trumpy. We did name a golden retriever sire after.
We did, but that was to troll people.
People don't know my sense of humor. Like, I'll watch out, see what I'll name them next. You know?
Copper, our golden, is named Donald J. Trump the third, as in the third time, third election, third winner, 2024. We named him this in 2022 prophetically. It was a prophetic name because we knew he was going to win the third term in 2024.
I just love funny stuff like that.
And it's funny. It is funny. Yeah. And
people get a huge kick out of it. It's hilarious.
Yeah. So yeah, we're very, well, I would say I am even more measured. I'm willing to go to bat for Trump much more than Tom. I'm willing to be like, okay, when he does something, I'm like, let's just wait a minute, see how it plays out. Let's not just jump to our, position right away. And we've done this so many times where you're like, you jump. You're a jumper.
I actually don't think I'm a jumper.
You're a jumper.
I'm looking at what's going on in America and globally, and I'm like, where's the America first? Where are the priorities of, and here's the thing, to me, it's not just the Trump administration, it's Congress too. I'm not picking on Trump, I'm picking on the leadership of our nation.
Of course.
And so we are, like, people can't afford medical care, people can't afford groceries, Cars are twice as expensive as they were 20 years ago. Our debt is out of control. Our dollar is being devalued and debased. No, people can't afford housing. And our military is currently not being paid, but we are still cutting foreign aid checks. I've always told people think that I'm like something. I call it the way I see it every time. I try to. And so, yeah, I'm not going to give credit to Trump or to anyone but Congressman Massey and Marjorie Taylor Greene at this point, because they're the only ones who are out there going, can we seriously like do something real right now? Where is the Make America First agenda right now?
Well,
like, where is Americans' healthcare on the agenda? No, you're in Israel asking for a pardon for a foreign leader and dealing with that. Okay, I mean, that's the priority, I guess. Well, that tells me everything I need to know.
I'm more willing to say, okay, you can't fix it all overnight. There's a system.
Can't
Hold on.
fix America before you fix
There's
Israel.
a system in place that you have to operate through. We've either decided to operate through the democratic system that is flawed, corrupted, and working against us, or we're opting for war. Currently, at this moment, we are opting for the democratic system that is flawed and corrupted and stacked against us. So we are not even 1 year into the administration. I'm like, give it a minute. There has been things, like a lot of really good things. There have been some really bad things that are hard to defend, up to and including the big, beautiful bill. We can talk about that in another episode. But I am one that's more willing, in the same way that I'm not going to jump out there and say, yes, win. I'm also not willing to go, worst decision ever. And you like to go on the extremes on those things.
As a veteran, when somebody says we have to work, there's a system we have to work through, it makes me want to kick a puppy.
That's awful.
I'm just telling you.
What?
When people start talking about like the system, we gotta let the system work.
That's because you're a veteran?
Well, it just reminds me of all the system of the military that is just
the military is
ridiculous.
Communism. Totally different system.
Totally different than the American government.
System. Very different.
Oh man.
But yes,
our
right
largest
now,
expenditure is our social programs.
Trump's playing some cards right now that are hard to get behind. And I mean, it could go, we'll see how it goes, is where I'm at. But
Trump's playing chess and we're all playing checkers, okay? That's what we like to say.
I mean, he has a way of threading the needle like I've never seen before, where it's like, I mean, even with Iran, that could have gone bad so many ways. And so far, it's been okay. So far, it went like, okay. I mean, right?
I feel like you'll play this back later on down the road.
I
and
mean,
be like,
for sure.
I could hear the angst in my voice now.
Well, I'm like, we're not far enough away from it to be like, for sure, that was a win. But for now, it was a win.
For now, it was a win.
Now, it was a win. And it could have been an immediate terrible thing. Fair? That could have gone so wrong right away in like 6 directions. And it didn't. That's what I mean. He like threads the needle where I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, like on Top Gun where you're flying the plane and things are happening and you have to like turn the plane and like, ugh. That's what he's doing. I
feel like I've just stepped into audience member and I'm thoroughly amused at hearing you rationalize
That's
this
what's
right
happening. Now. And it could go well, it could not. We're
totally
in a shutdown, government shutdown.
Yeah.
There's so much propaganda and nonsense around the government shutdown, but we got 2 bad options. The CR, which is like, keep doing what we've been doing, which is a bad option. Keep kicking the can after you promise and promise and promise you're going to stop doing it. That's what we're arguing for right now, everybody. The best case scenario is that we kick the can again and sign the CR. And the shutdown is over the Democrats wanting to add like $1.5 trillion over the next decade to that CR, which includes benefits for illegals. Of course, the language doesn't say benefits for illegals. It says like, whatever their language sous chefs. And they come up with words. And once you are here, you're an asylum seeker. You're no longer an illegal immigrant. So we can call them asylum seekers or some other name, and then give those people free medicine, health care. And they're not illegal immigrants. Obviously, they're not. Anyway, that's what the government shutdown's about. That's a little sidebar. What do you want to lock it up with in the last 5 minutes? As far as,
I don't know if we have time for that, but
why don't you tease it and we'll dive into it?
Well, I don't even know if we'll dive into it. I don't know. Let's see. Let's give it a shot. Let's give it a go. So today that we're recording this is Indigenous Peoples Day.
Oh, yeah.
Formerly known as Columbus Day. And again, this kind of is in parallel to, come to find out, Jews and Palestinians are both Jewish. And also just the whole
I think Palestinians are going to be so offended by
one. They're both probably are. Like I said, I'm not trying to be offensive. I'm just discovering things and sharing them, and that is what it is. But along the lines of like just one of the themes about this podcast, I want to be able to hold conflicting ideas together. I feel like the American just does not do that well. We need to do that better. We need to do that better. And it's interesting because like, I think in like my perception, we changed Columbus Day because like, I guess we all just realized that Columbus was like actually a really bad guy. Like he wasn't just the guy who came and discovered North America. Obviously he thought he was discovering something else, and the West Indies, he's instead of India, and everything, but he discovered North America. We don't even know if he actually did that, right?
Didn't.
Leif Erikson.
There were people here discovering it before that.
But either way, we gave him a day. Our bad. Never should have done that. Let's give that day
to Charlie Kirk,
to Indigenous people who were the people that Columbus discovered, ran into. And it's funny because, historically, like, in Columbus's like own journals and stuff, like it is true. It is not propaganda. It's not slander that Columbus, was a bad guy and how he treated.
He wrote it in his journal. I'm a bad guy, everyone.
Dear journal. He and his men, and the subsequent settlers did not treat the indigenous people well at all. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. And then there is a storied history of, to use society's term, the white man that settled the colonies, British colonies, etc., and then westward expansion, was in conflict with the indigenous people until they weren't, until the issue was settled. Now. And so then we give the day to Indigenous People Day.
When did that happen?
I feel like it was in like the early 2000s.
Yeah, it was like, I feel like maybe I was in college.
I feel like I was in high school or something. I feel like it started in California. It's I could be wrong, but I feel like it was one of those things that started in California.
So goes California.
But either way, I'm not upset as a white person, about losing my Columbus Day to Indigenous people. But what I find like funny, because my perception is that we gave the day to Indigenous people because the Indigenous people, Indians, Native Americans, they've been called so many things in my lifetime, were like peaceful and, lived in harmony with nature, and we all could really learn something from them. And basically they were living in a utopia, and we
ruined it,
brought syphilis and guns, you know what I mean? And like partly the syphilis and guns part is true. But it was not a utopia. And frankly, to kind of and there were a lot of different tribes. Like what we could do better on, and again, I'm no expert, but is actually learning some of the Native American like
history
nuances in history, because there were hundreds of tribes that, while they might have all been roughly the same color, lived in very different cultures, very different ways. Some were agricultural, some were more nomadic. So, they lived in different
Warriors.
climates. Yeah, some were much more violent than others, and frankly, the ones we remember the most, to sort of the detriment of that culture's perception, today, is the more violent ones. But there was so much more to it. But Columbus was a bad guy and was a savage himself. And frankly, there was a lot of savagery in the native people too. And like, there was like a list of tribes that actually helped the Spanish conquer the Aztecs, because the Aztecs were so savage to them. I mean, the Aztec, from my understanding, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, they didn't sacrifice their own people. They didn't pull out, and which they actually did this stuff, they didn't pull out the hearts of their own people.
I've seen Indiana Jones. Okay.
They would go, that was a whole nother side of the world. Different savages. They would go grab some people from a neighboring tribe and human sacrifice them. And then even there's some fascinating stories in Texas, the territory of Texas, when that was being settled. And it was a war. I mean, for lack of a better term, it was a war. Mm-hmm. And I mean, we're talking about scalping women and children. Yes, there was raping. Yes, there was pillaging. Yes, there is more than one documented case. I think it was occasional practice of dragging even infants behind a horse until they just came apart. And again, that is not all Native Americans at all. But
part of the story.
It's funny that we traded Columbus Day out because Columbus was savage and brought guns and syphilis for Indigenous Day, because, and I guess my point of this is like, it was one of the first kind of woke things.
Sure.
In my recollection.
Like just taking from one side and giving to the other side.
Or just taking and replacing. Like, I don't even feel like it's a side. I mean, I guess it's not unfair to say it's taken from, but oh no, this is wrong and this is, but it's like, you just replaced one lie for another. Like, Columbus is a great guy. That's not true. That's a lie. There was more to him. He was more nuanced than that. Did he discover for Western Europe, North America? Kind of. Was he also a bad guy? Yes. Indigenous people, they were not living in a utopia of peace and harmony with nature. They were warring just like every other human on the earth. They were doing their own conquering and, so on and so forth. And why do we have to replace it with a different lie? And I guess the reason why I bring this up is just, I want to point out these things that we can like
call out
and just hold like the truth of it.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't have to be all this or all that. And it's a good opportunity for us to realize that most of what we understand and have been taught is a one-sided version of something. If you grew up in public education, you learned that Columbus was a great guy, you know what I mean, in the 90s. If you went on to college in the 2000s, you learned that
you pendulum swings
he was a horrible person and Indigenous people were great. And again, they are great, but like, there was also horrible Indigenous people, like, it's like, and we can, I think we will all be better when we can start to see through some of this and just
see the lies.
I guess just like digest it a little more maturely.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. So
it's funny because Charlie Kirk, inspiration for this podcast, let's be honest, was getting one of the most controversial things that he was about in the, latter part of his life was kind of tearing down MLK a little bit and calling him out for the things that he was, the true story, because, at a certain point in his ministry, if you can call it that, or his activism, he was very well liked and had a very favorable opinion of him, like collectively of the nation of MLK. And then at the end of his life, he was actually had gone very radical and held very different views than he had when he was kind of at his pinnacle of which we remember him most for. And so his favorability had crumbled and he really wasn't favored at all at the end of his life. And then now he's almost, there's like a 90-something% favorable outlook on him today, which again, it comes from the way that his story has been told posthumously, and we're, eliminating some of the less colorful aspects of the story to shine him up a little bit and give him a day and give him an honoring of that. But Charlie Kirk talked about that and was like, it was blasphemous that he would dishonor, this man who's a man. He's a man. This is what I love about the Bible is we read about these characters in the Bible that are actual men that are flawed, and there's no effort in the Bible to eliminate those unfavorable stories. Like we read about David who had atrocities in his life, in his story. Solomon, Moses, Abraham, again and again, sinful, absolutely, some of the worst sins, and they're there. And we can still say, like you're saying, hold two things. Yes, you were imperfect, but you also had a positive influence, but God used you in this way. And, sometimes you finished well, and sometimes these kings and these people in the Bible did not finish well. They didn't keep it to the end. They didn't finish the race strong. And so, that's normal. That is normal. It's true in the Bible. And if it's true in the Bible, then it can be true in the real world. It can be true historically. And it shouldn't be controversial to talk about things as they actually are, right? That should not be an unfavorable opinion. But we did share, maybe this title of this will be A Few Unfavorable Opinions from Tom and Wendy.
Maybe that'll be the name of the podcast by the end of the week. We'll just have to rebrand. Unfavorable opinions.
Love it. All right, that's what we got for you today. Thanks for joining us on the Modern Watchman podcast.
Remember, truth isn't just something we believe, it's something we live out every day.
Stay alert, stay discerning, and don't lose sight of the hope we have in Christ.
Until next time,
be watchmen. Andy. Too low. How come it's always so pivoted?
Hold on. No. Are you in enough?
It's questionable. Okay. It's almost 11.
It's greens.
But why is this now the time?
Because it's healthy.
What does that have to do with it?
Don't try too hard for bloopers here, okay?
I'm not trying too hard.
Okay. I feel like if I do something healthy, there's something wrong with it. If I don't do something, is there something wrong with it? I'm having greens at night.
I'm not. Why didn't you have them 1 hour ago?
What's the difference between having hot tea right now?
It doesn't have ice cubes in it.
Oh, it's the sound thing again?
Yes.
Oh, no,
Tom.
I want something to have a little sip of
So have some hot tea. That sounds like a great idea. Detox tea.
Look, you know how Gage would feel about that. That's how your testosterone goes down when you get older.
Gage would have a problem with detox tea. Did you get a chunk?
I got a chunk.
You deserve it.
All right, where are we at here?
Welcome. Oh my gosh. Why'd you bring us in today?
I don't know how to bring us in.
Well, you're going to have to learn. Is that the puppies?
That's the puppies. Mm-hmm.
Just say it.
Say what?